By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hidden for 3 months by his parents because they saw that the child was beautiful, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. By faith, Moses, when he was grown up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to be mistreated with the people of God than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He considered the reproach of Christ greater wealth than the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking to the reward. By faith he left Egypt, not being afraid of the anger of the king, for he endured as seeing him. By faith he left Egypt, not being afraid of the anger of the king, for he endured as seeing him who was invisible. By faith he kept the Passover and sprinkled the blood, so the destroyer of the firstborn might not touch them. Now I'm going to go down to verse 32. And what more shall I say? For time would fail me to tell Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David. King David was a polygamist, had multiple wives, and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the power of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, were made strong out of weakness, became mighty in war, put armies to the fight. Women received back their dead by resurrection. Some were tortured, refusing to accept release so that they might rise again to a better life. Others suffered and mocked and flogging. They were stoned, they were sown in two, they were killed with the sword. They went about in skins of sheep and goats, destitute, afflicted, and mistreated, of whom the world was not worthy, wandering about in deserts and mountains and dens and caves. So of those mentioned, at least 4 that we know about were polygamous. And yet they're mentioned as being men of faith. David himself was called a man of God. Now don't get me wrong, he had family, as we all do. Maybe polygamy was one of those. Maybe it wasn't. It was never specifically spoken out against by God. And that's where I come in. That it's never been specifically mentioned that polygamy is not okay by God. And the verses that appear to say that are either directed at one individual person or could have been a mistranslation. Therefore, it is my conclusion that it's up to the individual believer to determine where they feel God is leading them on this issue. I'm not going to say you're wrong. I expect the same respect. Don't tell me I'm wrong. Do your research. But you're never going to convince me. I've done my research. I know what I feel God is telling me. And I've had to fall back on other principles, biblical principles, to make this decision. The one big one that convinced me to do it was, how can I best show the love of Christ? By turning away someone who cares about me just simply because everybody in society tells me that I should only be married to one woman? Why? Why? That's where I stand. It's up to the individual believer to decide. I've made my decision. Do your research. Don't trust what other people just tell you. Look at things up. Figure things out for yourself. God doesn't want sheeple. God wants people who are going to sit there and question him and say, I don't always understand you, God. What do you want from me? How does this match up? Too often we're just sheeple. Stop being sheeple. Well, that ends this video. Hope you all have a good day. Sayonara.